In 1950, Willie Faye Battle graduated as valedictorian from Booker T. Washington High School in Wichita Falls, Texas. She was accepted at Midwestern State University, then Midwestern University, only to be turned away when she physically came to campus to register for classes. Turned away because of the color of her skin, Midwestern turned away 5 additional black students over the next year. Desegregation would not occur on campus until 1954 when Brown versus the Board of Education went to the Supreme Court. However, few MSU students realize or even know that if that case had failed, the next case to be heard would have come from our own campus. That case was Battle et al. Versus Wichita Falls Junior College District. The preparation would bring famous figures such as Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court justice, to town. Welcome to The Brutal Truth. I'm Michael Olds, your host, and today we're delving into a pivotal moment in the history of Midwestern State University, the desegregation era. But before we begin, I want to warn you that this episode may contain language and discussions that some listeners may find offensive. When exploring sensitive topics like this, it's essential to confront the uncomfortable truths head-on. I spoke with Dr. Syreeta Greene, Associate Dean for the Office of Fellow Affairs at the American Film Institute and the former Director of the Mosaic Cross-Cultural Center at MSU for today's episode. Dr. Greene was involved in bringing a Texas state historical marker to campus and was kind enough to spend time discussing our storied past. Midwestern State University, nestled in Wichita Falls, Texas, boasts a rich history dating back to its establishment in 1922. But like many institutions of its time, it wasn't immune to the scourge of segregation. Operating under the guise of separate but equal, state officials said that the students applying to MSU had other schools they could attend. However, those schools were located in Houston, Prairie View, and San Antonio. And anyone who's lived or driven through Texas knows that those schools are not close at all, with the nearest of those being a 4-hour drive on today's roads. This would be the basis of Battle's case against the state.
Had been denied by the state of Texas, and partially because the response was there are adequate schools for you all to go to, which at the time was like Prairie View, A&M, and I want to say Texas Southern. But the counter to that by the students who brought the suit was like, those are not close. And the law says that you have to provide a comparable educational experience that is, within reasonable distance.
The winds of change began to blow in the late 1950s, echoing the broader civil rights movement sweeping across the nation. The catalyst, a landmark legal battle that would shake the foundations of segregation in higher education. Private and public schools started to open their doors willingly and desegregate, but some schools stayed locked on their courses. Sadly, MSU Texas chose to enforce segregation. The original answer to the lawsuit against MSU was that the school was following the strict criteria set forth by the state of Texas. In his dissertation at MSU in 2012, Robert Stewart III found that the lawyers defending MSU said that there were adequate programs at other schools in both Wichita Falls and Vernon. By 1951, the case against MSU was gathering steam, and Judge William H. Atwell handed the first victory to the students by ruling that they had to be admitted to the school on equal terms. However, by early 1952, when Willie Faye Battle, Golden White, and Lawrence McBride attempted to sign up for their classes, they were again turned away, this time because their paperwork was, quote, improperly filled out.
You had indentured Africans and indentured, white folks who were working side by side. And from a class perspective, the elite, the owners were like, oh, yeah, we can't have them actually coming together with one another, because then that will disrupt what we have going on and how we can, keep the most for a few of us.
In 1954, the United States Supreme Court handed down its historic decision in Brown v. Board of Education, declaring segregation in public schools unconstitutional. This seismic ruling sent shockwaves through the educational landscape, setting the stage for a reckoning with segregation at universities and colleges. No longer could states and their school boards play fast and loose with the laws protecting the rights of African Americans, something that my family has a history tied to, as my father as a child stood in line with those wanting to keep segregation, something that Dr. Greene and I also talked about.
I think there's an opportunity for us to reframe those who we have decided are on the wrong side of history, right?
And I think this is the most ridiculous thing that has ever happened. The Negroes are just as free as we are. They have the same opportunity to work.
I think there's opportunities to be able to empathize with them, because they certainly had the opportunity to make a different choice.
Of course, being a Southerner, I'm not for it at all.
And also, they may have been, targeted with information like we see the media doing now. We know history will tell us that there's been plenty of propaganda that has been put out, particularly about various different groups. And so we know folks were targeted with propaganda.
Enter Midwestern State University. As pressure mounted to desegregate, MSU found itself at a crossroads, grappling with the moral imperative to dismantle racial barriers. But the path to desegregation was fraught with resistance. Deep-seated prejudice and institutional inertia stood as formidable obstacles, casting a shadow over progress. Slowly but surely, Midwestern State University began to open its doors to African American students. The process was gradual, marked by triumphs and setbacks. Armed with courage and determination, African American pioneers stepped onto campus grounds, challenging the status quo and forging a path for a more inclusive future.
Comments that Dr. Bosley made about his feelings of coming to MSU as one of the first students to desegregate. Like, for him, it was a positive experience in that because prior to coming to MSU, he lived on the segregated side of Wichita Falls, and he had hardly no interaction with white folks. But what that meant was that he never was exposed to the thoughts and feelings, the negative thoughts and feelings that some white folks in Wichita Falls had of Black people.
But let's not sugarcoat the reality. Desegregation was met with resistance. Some members of the university community clung to outdated notions of racial superiority, clinging stubbornly to the vestiges of a bygone era. Yet, amidst the turmoil, glimmers of hope emerged. African American students found allies among their peers and faculty members who stood shoulder to shoulder in solidarity against bigotry and discrimination. As the flames of change swept across the nation, Midwestern State University was swept up in the tide of history. The university's journey towards desegregation mirrored a larger societal shift towards equality and justice. But the struggle was far from over. Desegregation was just the beginning, a crucial step on the path towards a more inclusive and equitable society. And today, Midwestern State University stands as a testament to the enduring legacy of those who fought tirelessly for equality. Their courage and sacrifice remind us that pursuing justice is an ongoing journey that requires vigilance, determination, and unwavering resolve. Our campus is a diverse community representing 44 of our 50 states and 55 countries from around the globe. MSU has become a place where your skin color doesn't determine your grades or your ability to enroll, but the power of your mind and dedication to your education are the determining factors. However, with the Texas legislature passing SB 17 in June 2023, also known as the Anti-DEI Bill, Texas has set back decades of work by banning all programming involving race, gender, and sexuality organized or led by faculty. Our Mosaic Center has been hamstrung and forced to adapt to the new law. The leaders best equipped to teach students and pass on the knowledge to carry them forward are forbidden by state law to do so. Once again, on college campuses across Texas, fights for equal rights have stormed to the front. And once again, MSU has hidden behind the age-old line, "I'm just doing what the state says I have to do." Just like they did in the 1950s, they've not pushed back against something that hurts our campus. Programs dealing with race, gender, and sexual identity are now hindered so much that young adults in the process of finding who they are and their place in the world are now robbed of the valuable resources to help them in that process.
I mean, the information about the desegregation was once on the Mosaic website, but now that's been removed. I assume that it has to do with the law. To me, this is where I feel like MSU has to figure out, like, how can we continue to just simply, this isn't anything about DEI. This is historical fact. And how can we present this historical fact to our community and to the community at large?
Let us honor the past while striving towards a future where diversity is celebrated and embraced, and everyone is welcomed with open arms, regardless of race, gender, or sexual identity. Those who started the fight when it was just them against what was seen as an insurmountable force need to be remembered. Helen Muriel Davis, Carl Lawrence McBride, Mary Allen Virginia Menifee, Wilma Jean Norris, and Golden White. They fought for what they believed in, and while they did not all end up attending MSU themselves, they planted the seeds that allowed for change to come to all of Texas and set the groundwork for other states to be able to challenge unconstitutional laws that allowed segregation to continue.
Oftentimes, we're literally just planting a seed. I mean, it's the same thing I think about when I've worked with students over the years, is that I don't know if what I'm pouring into you, well, I don't know if I'll ever see it, but all I can do is plant the seed. And if we're not, then, we'll give up and we won't persist.
Unfortunately, some of the seeds planted here at MSU over the last 70 years have begun to wilt and rot. Thank you for joining me on this episode as we discussed a dark period in our campus's past and our current fight against SB 17 and its vast overreach. History, whether for good or bad, needs to be remembered and kept in the memory of our collective conscience, or it'll start to fade and be forgotten, relegated to the history books, memorials, and other monuments that we won't see or even realize that they're on our campus. And the passing of SB 17 further shows what forgetting the past can bring about. I want to extend a special thanks to Dr. Syreeta Greene for taking the time from her busy schedule to speak with me, to SoundQ for using their music database, and to the Moffett Library staff for helping me find a dissertation written by MSU alumni Robert Stewart III discussing the many cases from this period in our past. On our next episode, we'll discuss more recent controversies in our campus's history. A white supremacist on campus exposed by Antifa, and a professor who ultimately was forced to resign his position for comments made on Facebook in the wake of the police murder of George Floyd. I'm Michael, and this has been The Brutal Truth. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and never shy away from confronting the uncomfortable truths that shape our world.